Welcome to episode 45 of 1530. Today we're going to talk about the Australian Open, specifically the final, and the triumph of Rafael Nadal. It was an amazing 5-set match. Medvedev, arguably one of the best hardcourt players right now on tour, the number 2 player in the world, is facing Nadal in the final of the Australian Open. So our stat of the day is that rallies of 9+ shots, that Nadal won the battle overall, and especially on each player's respective serve points, 48-42. So kind of surprising there that Nadal, 35-year-old, was outlasting the Medvedev, who's really known to be good everywhere, but especially on hard courts and in the long rallies. And Medvedev, let's keep in mind, he's a whole decade younger than Nadal. He's 25 years old. Nadal's 35 years old. And Nadal lost the long rallies. That was absolutely baffling to me. So that's kind of our stat of the day. I think it kind of sets up the whole discussion. But I know all the pundits that were talking about, hey, they weren't necessarily downplaying Nadal's chances, but they were saying if Nadal's going to win this match against Medvedev, who is almost unbeatable, has no weaknesses, especially on the hard courts, he's going to have to shorten the points, really dictate with his forehand. Nadal's going to have to serve really well. If he can do those two things, maybe he wins. But they were definitely counting on Nadal winning the short rallies and not the long rallies. And kind of was the opposite here. We'll talk about the match. It was definitely an up and down match, right? The first 2 sets were very different than the last few in the numbers. But point being, overall, the whole match, Nadal was able to take control of those longer rallies and really outlast Medvedev, which is kind of surprising. I don't know, Matt, as a Nadal fan, what are your thoughts on this match?
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. Especially, I feel like a lot of the conversation whenever I'm watching Medvedev play, commentators are always talking about his fitness. He looks like a kind of a lanky guy, but they're always talking about how he's got really good endurance. And he's young, obviously that has a huge impact. And so, yeah, I'm just as surprised as you to see that Rafa was able to capitalize on those long rallies. And those rallies were all just insane. I'm sure you saw the highlights. There were a lot of those long points, and they were all really, really intense. It was some super high-quality tennis. Fantastic win for Rafa to get his 21st slam title. 2 career Grand Slams. It's a wonderful thing. It's interesting. Yeah, we could talk about that later. Do you want to get into the stats a little bit?
Yeah, but just also, like you're mentioning kind of the magnitude of this event, right? Like you're saying, Nadal had been here before, right? He's been in multiple Australian Open finals. Right. He's only won one of them up until now. He's won 2, but his other win was in 2009 over Federer in a 5-setter. But some of the other times he's had chances were 2012. It was a 5-setter against Novak, one of the longest finals, I think, in history. Yeah. And
he's got 2 of the longest, right? Now that against Djokovic and then this one against Medvedev, I think
so. I think this one was a bit longer, or the one in 2012 was a bit longer, but you're right. They're both very long, almost 6 hours. And that match, he was up a break against Djokovic in the 5th set. Djokovic fought back and won the match. If you remember, Federer kind of had his comeback year in 2017 and did really well, but he was actually down a break in the 5th against Nadal. He came back to win that set 6-3, so maybe people forget about that. But Nadal was in the driver's seat in that final, and he just, up to that point, had never been able to win, the Australian Open a second time, complete a second career slam. And so Djokovic was kind of, standing alone on that. And so I think that was kind of a dig against Nadal for his resume, is not able to win, the 2 career slams, but also not as many hard court slam victories, right? 13 Roland Garroses out of his 20. But now, right, he goes to 21, kind of stands alone, breaks the tie with Federer and Djokovic, which is amazing. And then kind of a dig at Djokovic too, right? This is his turf. This is where Djokovic has won like 10 titles or something. So I think it's a big deal too that, able to do it where Djokovic not only would have been a favorite, no matter who's in the final, but, able to kind of steal a slam from him off of his turf. So kind of interesting, right? Djokovic stole from Roland Garros from Nadal last year. This year, Djokovic gets the Australian Open stolen by Nadal. Kind of a kind of a weird back and forth. I'm sure this won't be the end of our discussion, but cool to
Yeah.
see him triumph and beat,
And
not a no-name person. He beat one of the best hardcore players, right? So there's really
right.
no denying him that. That's amazing.
Although it does beg the question, I mean, it will always be there. If Joke had been in this tournament, Rafa would have matched up with him, in the semis. This, this final could have been a completely different matchup. If Rafa were down 2-0 against Joke in the semis, I don't think he's making the comeback that he did against Daniel.
Yeah.
But
and I do want to say, I did say on this last episode how good Nadal looked in the warm-up tournament. It really looks like he was feeling his forehand and his movement. I did see him making the final, but I'm not going to lie, I definitely had Medvedev penciled in to win this one.
Yeah.
Or Zverev, just whoever kind of came out on that. I guess it wouldn't have been Zverev, but it would have been Tsitsipas.
yeah.
Yeah. So, Nadal definitely proved me wrong. Medvedev was pretty close there to, being 2-0 up, pretty close to taking him out, and we'll get into those numbers, but you ultimately got to get it done. And I think we saw that with Tsitsipas against Djokovic this last year in the final, where Tsitsipas was up 2-0 playing really well on the clay. And Djokovic was even saying, I kind of thought I was out of the match, but I thought one point at a time, get back into this, try to find a way. And he found a way and kind of flipped the match on Tsitsipas. And that was like a tale of two matches as well, where Tsitsipas didn't really even have a chance in the last couple sets. And Nadal kind of did the same thing to Medvedev. Medvedev, we'll talk about, he had a chance in the third set to go up. I think he was, love 40 up on one of Nadal's service games. But once Nadal shut that one down, there weren't too many chances for Medvedev, maybe to break back, but not really be in the driver's seat and to take one of those sets. So, yeah, again, kind of huge. These legends, they're not going away without a fight, and they want to rack up as many slams as they can. That's the reality.
Yep. And I mean, obviously it's not a quantifiable stat, but the mental toughness, and we talk about this every tournament, every time we meet, but the mental toughness, the big three are on a completely different level. I mean, I can't imagine having set point in the second set, losing the set, being down love 2, 35 years old. You got a 25-year-old smelling blood in the water, just coming off of a U.S. Open first title. And you come back and take 3 sets, and like you mentioned, you're down love 40 in the third. Love 40. And you take that game and that set. I mean, it's incredible, and it's not unique to Rafa, but it is, I would say, unique to Rafa, Fed, and Djokovic. Those three just have a way to push through and keep going. It's insane.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And if you think about last year with Nadal losing Roland Garros, he had his really bad, I believe it was a foot injury. Mm-hmm. It was one of Nadal's first years. He didn't compete kind of after he didn't even compete in the U.S. Open or onward. Yeah. And Nadal even talked about, I can't remember if it was just before the match or kind of after, but he said, I thought about retiring from tennis, basically.
He had conversations with Fed about if they were ever going to play again.
If he was ever going to play again. He had COVID pretty bad, actually, too.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't really, his body wasn't holding up. He's like, I don't know about this, coming to Australia. Really didn't know if he was going to play again. And then he flips the script, starts off with really good movement, looks pretty good, has a pretty good draw. And he, not only makes the final, but he wins it in a big comeback. So I think that's a huge testament to him and who is, hard work and work ethic and getting back to where he needs to be to compete for titles. And I know we saw Federer do the same thing in 2017 when he came back from injury, wins his first slam back. I mean, that's just insane. And,
and it begs the question. I mean, and maybe we talk about this a little bit later, but can you hear me still?
I can hear you. Yeah. What were you saying?
Oh my God. Hold on.
You're good. I got some real quick while you're waiting there. So looking also at the 0 to 4 shots and the 5 to 8 shots. So kind of the shorter rallies. Both of those were won by Medvedev in the match overall, and kind of overwhelming on the 4 shot rallies. It was 100 points won by Medvedev to 90 by Nadal. So I would have thought Nadal, like we said, would have had a better chance to win if he shortened the points and won those quick points with his forehand especially. But I guess that wasn't a difference maker in the end. Medvedev was actually pretty good on some of those short rallies, coming up with some quick winners. It's kind of a puzzling match, honestly, but like I said, we're going to dive into the box score and really go into it. It wasn't the cleanest match from, I guess, overall perspective. There's a decent amount of errors, but like you said, there's some long rallies. There were some really good points that played out. You're looking at 68 unforced for Nadal and 69 winners. So he was positive on the differential. Medvedev was better. He had 76 winners to 52 unforced, but I guess over 5 sets, that's not horrible. But there were sometimes where it was like puzzling shot, shot selection or some of those unforced. But over 5 sets, when you're tired and you're playing these long rallies, I guess you're going to have some of those. But there was also some high quality points as well. So I think both guys kind of ebbed and flowed with their quality. Medvedev served awesomely. He had 23 aces. Only had 5 double faults, and he had a pretty high first serve percentage, 69%. Got a lot of them in, and won a lot of his first serve points, 71%. That's a pretty solid number, but it was really the second serve that's let him down. He only won 41% of those second serve points, and I think you can directly tie that to those long rallies. Nadal was able to get into his second serve for Medvedev, make him some long rallies, and he was able to win a lot of those points. And I think, ultimately looking at the box score really quickly, that's the difference maker, because really Medvedev kind of outperformed Nadal in most other categories. He even won 7 more points total for the match, 189 points to 182 points. So again, one of those, tragedies where the person that loses wins more points overall, but that's what happens, right? If you win a lopsided first set, which Medvedev did, and then after that the sets were closer, but Nadal took most of them. That's kind of what happens, right? You kind of run up the score early, and then later you're left losing, even though you had more points. So just kind of how the day worked out for Medvedev. Just couldn't quite get over the finish line. And you mentioned the Love 40 game. That's a huge thing that's probably in his mind. He could have wrapped this up in straights, and that would have been we'd be talking different story right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would be interested to go back and watch this match again, excuse me, and count how many times Rafa ended a point with a drop shot. And I think that maybe part of the reason that he won so many of those long rallies is he kept his balls deep. I mean, Rafa's got that spin. It's easy to keep your opponents deep when you're Rafa Nadal, but he'd push him back behind the line, and then he was dropping Medvedev frequently, and they were effective. Medvedev would struggle to get there, and when he did, I mean, he could do not much more than just put it back on the other, over the net, make it easy for Rafa to put it away. But that was an interesting strategy. You watch some of these players really love the drop shot. I know Fed's used it a lot, especially in Wimbledon. I've never really seen that shot from Rafa, but he employed it more than, I don't know. I guess that's, maybe he uses it more than I realize, but I feel like he was relying on that shot more than usual, part of his game plan or something. But
that's a good point. Think about that. Yeah, it shows that here in the stats over the whole match, he had 4 winners on the drop shot, but obviously just because it's not a winner, Medvedev gets there or hits it into the net. Right. That one's not shown as much, but still, that's more, like you said, than I'm used to seeing from Rafa. Interesting. I think even looks like 3 came from the forehand side, or 4 came from the forehand side. Let's see in the backhand. 0 winners came from the backhand side. So yeah, you usually think of the drop shot more slicing the backhand, getting the drop shot, but yeah, he's doing some forehand ones too. So kind of interesting. Oh yeah, one thing to note as well. So had Medvedev won this match, this would have been a big deal because I guess just for men's side of things, no one has ever won their first 2 consecutive majors. So I kind of probably said that wrong, but once you win your first major, no one's followed up with the next major in a row winning it, which is kind of surprising to me. I guess Federer and some of these guys, when they were first coming up through the game, you think, oh yeah, Federer won a ton of slams in a row, and he did. He was pretty dominant in a few short years, but his first slam obviously didn't win the next one right after. So that would have made history. And I think Medvedev is, especially hard court wise, definitely one of the better players around. Just for some reason, Nadal is kind of a tough out for him. Just want to remind the listeners that Nadal won a 5-set final. It was Medvedev's maiden slam final. Medvedev lost in 5 sets to Nadal in the U.S. Open 2019. But that match was weird because Nadal went up 2 sets to love. Medvedev had to claw back. He kind of used some serve volley, kind of changed his tactics, but still lost a tight 5th set. So I don't know what is about these two guys, but their game, they kind of bring out the best in each other and some long rallies, and Nadal's been getting the better of him. There was one match that was an anomaly, though, where Medvedev won it. It was not a slam match, but it was in the ATP finals. I think it was a year ago, where Medvedev was down a break in the 3rd set, and he came back to win it and beat Nadal and make the final, and then he won his first ATP finals tournament. So, yeah, like I said, the mind games here are just the way that their games match up. I think it kind of does benefit Nadal in a lot of ways, but still crazy, man. Still super crazy.
It's crazy. It begs the question moving forward. You know, I know that the French Open has already come out and said, hey, we've got in France similar restrictions to Australia. Joke's already, questionable for that tournament. Wimbledon's kind of just taken a step back and said, whatever happens, happens. As we get closer, we'll figure it out. And I don't think that England's entrance requirements are as strict. I could be totally wrong on that. So maybe he'll be able to play Wimbledon. But if he's not, I mean, who's gonna compete against Rafa at Wimbledon? There are no real grass court players that are super strong. You had some, obvious competition last year in the French that Nadal faced. Obviously, he didn't make it, but could be interesting. It could be an interesting year of slams.
Yeah. Or even just people have mentioned the psyche for Djokovic,
right?
Not being able to go to Australia, starting off his season the way he did, being deported, kind of traumatic. You never know mentally what it's going to do, or it could do the converse, right? It could make him hungrier, and if he shows up to Wimbledon, obviously he's the favorite. Right. French, got to give it to Nadal, of course, being a favorite. But yeah, kind of interesting, right? These other guys, Tsitsipas is good on the clay and the grass.
That's true.
Zverev's been playing better on all these surfaces, so you never know, but it's looking pretty good for, if you're a Nadal or Djokovic fan. They have, assuming like you're saying, they can get in, Djokovic can get into these tournaments without the vaccine. There's some good tennis that they can, titles that they can steal here. So it'll be interesting. I don't know if we should just go back to the box score. There's probably still more to cover, but both guys went to net a decent amount. I felt like Nadal was pretty successful. I'm surprised he only won 60% of net points. I felt like when I watched him, it looked like he was a little more successful than that. But
yeah, agreed.
30 of 50, and Medvedev was 28 of 50, so 56%. He went to net more than I would have thought too. But we kind of knew in the back of our minds he wanted to shorten points against Nadal, and he did that at the U.S. Open. He found that to be a winning strategy. So he went to net a lot more than I think he normally would have. And Medvedev, he won 38% of receiving points. So that's a pretty decent number, and it's better than Nadal's 36%. Kind of interesting there. I mentioned the 23 aces that he had. If you look here, so you know how we talk about the serve factor, which is combining your first serve points one, second points one, and then subtracting it from your opponents. Kind of get kind of a ratio. And the overall box score shows that Medvedev is up on that serve factor by 1.5, which is pretty small. That's showing it's a tight 5-setter. Anything less than 10, difference of 10. But if you break it out set by set, it was really interesting. So based on the first set numbers, Medvedev was up plus 37. So anything greater than 30, we've kind of determined that's a decisive 3-setter. You're done. Nadal was getting crushed in that first set, right? Medvedev was winning 83% of first serve points. Nadal was only winning 57. They both only won 25% of second points won, but Medvedev served at such a high percentage, 82% first serve percentage. So he served it like as well as he could have. Nadal did the opposite. He did not win like any points on his serve pretty much where you would expect him to. So that really wasn't close. And that's kind of the feeling that I got as I was kind of watching it, is that if Medvedev continues to play at this level, this will be a quick 3-setter reminiscent of, I think, the last time Nadal faced Djokovic in the Australian Open final. He had great form going into it, but then he just got crushed. It was like 6-2, 6-1, or, some very lopsided scores. And, Medvedev got this one done 6-2. Second set, though, things got a little tricky, right? Medvedev got broken. He was down a break. Nadal looked like he was going to serve for it. He had at least 1 or 2 set points, right, Matt?
Mm-hmm.
And Medvedev forced a tiebreaker, and Medvedev won the tiebreaker. It was dramatic fashion, some amazing points, and it kind of made Nadal fans wonder, like, man, this guy hasn't won a tiebreak in a long time. There was some stat out there because he's lost a couple tiebreaks against Dominic Thiem in the Australian Open. I think it was last year or the year before. Lost some to Tsitsipas last year in the Australian Open. I guess at least against top 10 players. I don't know if he's won a tiebreak in a slam in a long time.
Yeah, so he did take one from Menarino in this tournament, right? That 14-12 tiebreak.
True. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, if you're looking at top 10,
yeah.
Yeah, who knows?
Not top 10. Yeah, so just for some, I don't really know why he's not taking the tiebreaks, if that's a mental thing or if players just know this is your chance to get Nadal. You have to friggin' take the tiebreaker and serve really well. But yeah, that's some stats someone brought up is top 10. I don't think he's won a tiebreak in a while.
Yeah, I think he had a mini breakup in this.
He was
Medi. Yeah,
he absolutely was.
Yeah,
Medvedev had some crazy points to get back into that though. It was that was a fun tiebreak to watch. But then if you look at the serve factor at the end of serve set 2, it shows Medvedev by 4 plus 4. So again, showing a tight 5-setter. So you go from the end of the first set, it's going to be a 3-setter, not even close. After the second set, he goes, it's going to be pretty tight. Like maybe Nadal will win a couple sets. But as a Medvedev fan, you had to be thinking there, I'm up 2 sets to love. This is, just need to get one more. But then from there on out, after that break point, those 3 break points, Medvedev couldn't convert. It was Nadal, So at the end of the third set, which Nadal was able to wrangle back, it showed Nadal plus 30. So that showed Nadal in 3 sets. I don't know if that's a, kind of prophetic there because Nadal did win the next couple sets. But really, really weird. Set 4 tightened up again. It showed Nadal plus 5. So it's showing a 5-setter if you can keep going through more sets, right? So it's looking at set 4. And then set 5 was Nadal plus 5 as well. So Nadal won the set 4 and 5 were really tight, and Nadal was able to win those. Set 3 was not very tight, and Nadal was able to steal it. But set 1 was a beatdown in terms of Medvedev. Set 2 was very tight Medvedev. So kind of weird to see the pendulum kind of swing. Goes from Medvedev's going to win this by a ton to it's going to be tight to Nadal's going to win it by a ton. So it really was a roller coaster of a match. You really kind of got to break down the numbers as you went set by set to kind of see them. And Medvedev's level, second serve points won, just was never really where he needed it to be. You're not going to beat Nadal by only winning 40% of your second serve points won.
Yeah.
It's just not going to get it done.
No doubt about it.
Something else there. Let's see. Check it out. There are a lot of other matches, which we're not really covering the stats right now, but I was impressed with Felix Auger-Aliassime in his run. Shapovalov also pushed Nadal to 5 sets and went pretty far. Tsitsipas again was incredible, and he was able to, he keeps falling up short to Medvedev on the hard court. He can't really figure him out. I think he's beaten him on some of these other surfaces like clay, but still fun to watch him, and he gets a lot of support from the Australian crowd. So, there's other guys that are trying to come through. And I don't know, Matt, did you get to see any of Cressy, the American, who's a
I
big
did
serves and
not.
volleys every point, at least on
He
his
does
serve.
what?
He serves and volleys every point on his serve.
Is that right?
He's got a massive serve, and he literally he's going to the net every single time. And his goal was like, I'm going to win the tournament. I'm not just going to go far. I'm going to win the tournament. And he pushed Medvedev to 4 sets, and he made Medvedev pretty uncomfortable.
Oh, that's interesting.
Actually did a pretty good job. Yeah, pretty fun to watch, actually, seeing some of those rallies. So there's some other guys I'm interested to see how they do throughout the year and kind of cover their numbers in future episodes. But yeah, the Cressy guy, I think we should be talking about his serve and volley. He's saying it's not dead, and he can win it serve volley. So
well, maybe he'll show out in the UK.
Yeah, pretty fun. Yeah, the graphs would be a great place to do it. But yeah, again, amazing triumph by Nadal. Great mental toughness in winning it in 5, 2 sets to love down. Still shocked by this final. Honestly, it was high quality. Medvedev, obviously he was pretty shook up. I think at the end was very congratulatory to Rafa, but I think was disappointed in himself and was saying he needs to do better, needs to find a way to play some better tennis. So, because his game clearly dipped. And again, I don't know why, if it was more mental or if he started running out of gas. But point is, I think we'll see if this is inspiring him to go to greater heights, or if this is going to frustrate him. Remains to be seen, I guess. There.
Yep. I'm sure he'll add it to his toolbox and.
Yep. Yeah, and we should probably still do like a top 10 things we learned from Australia, but I think we kind of wanted to dedicate this episode to the final because it was so exhilarating and is a big deal for the overall count in slams for the men's game. It's a big deal. 21 slams. Nadal stands alone, and he did it at a slam we didn't think that he would win and maybe ever win again.
Yeah.
So pretty amazing. Anything else, Matt, that you have?
That's everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what we got. So, as always, please check us out at cognitionsphere.com and share our podcast with a friend that enjoys tennis. And until next time, we'll see you on the court.